We've got test results on the all-new Cadillac XT4. We're going to discuss Volvo's safety proposal, and then we talk for way longer than you could ever imagine about door hinges. Next on Talking Cars. Hey, welcome back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm Jake Fisher.
And I'm John Lincove.
Today we are going to go straight into some news, an announcement from Volvo that they are going to be limiting the speeds, the top speeds on all their new cars to 112 miles an hour. And that number rounds off a little better in the metric system. But 112, it seems kind of a high top speed. Jake, what do you think about this, and why are they doing this?
Well, initially it's kind of a strange one, right? Because I mean, I'm not sure how many people, are buying their Volvo XC90s and, really need to drive 115 or looking to do some track events or
most
something like
cars.
that. Or most cars.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is that not a lot of people are really driving that speed. So then you're like, well, okay, well, but crashes, or a lot of, the truth is that if you're driving 110 miles an hour, it's still really dangerous. I mean, the amount of crashes that actually happen above those speeds is just minuscule.
Particularly in the U.S.
Particularly in the U.S. So the question is, why are they doing it? And I have a theory.
What's your theory?
My theory. Now, Volvo is serious about safety, right? I mean, so Volvo has a reputation about safety. People buy Volvos because they're like, hey, I want the safest. And what is the metric of safety? So safety is, well, there's crash protection and there's the tests that we do and all that. But also it really comes down to is how many people are dying in the cars. And they want nobody to die in Volvos, which is
That's
admirable.
a stated goal.
There's
That's a stated goal.
zero death, right?
Which totally makes sense. Now, the dirty little secret about deaths is that a lot has to do with who drives the cars. So you could look at all the crash protection data, and we have it all on our site, but actually there's a site called at HLDI, the HLDI, Highway Loss Data Institute. And you can go and you could look and see how many crashes are in each one of these cars. And ultimately, that's the measure of the deaths in these vehicles and the crashes in these vehicles. And so I'm thinking about it. So okay, so I'm buying a car, right? So a certain amount of people are going to be, there's certain enthusiasts and, gasoline pumping through your veins. And you're going to be like, I don't want to buy that car because it can only go 112. Well, if you could get those people to stop buying your car, chances are there's going to be less crashes in your cars. Because the type of person who's going to be turned off from a car not going that speed, maybe if you're Volvo, it's like, well, maybe I don't want that demographic in my car. And ultimately, you're going to have less deaths in your cars, which is going to make your brand look better.
And they're not getting adverse selection, I think, in the insurance industry.
Well, they're not getting young buyers anyway in Volvos. So that's a high percentage of people who have accidents. So right now you're getting rid of, like you said, the risky, and they're going to have older, more affluent buyers.
Sure.
I mean, I don't even know what the Europhiles, particularly in Europe, in Germany, are going to say. They're, don't do it to my Porsche. They're already freaking out about electrics and automatic transmissions.
And 112 on the Autobahn is
dangerous.
Someone is on your tail.
I've been in a Volvo at 112, and that Mercedes comes up really quickly on your back.
Or the guy in the Fiat Panda comes up for some reason comes up real fast.
Look, it's a very interesting point. What about high-speed AEB, automatic emergency braking? It slows you, but it's not preventing. Right. At 112, it's useful-ish.
Right.
So.
Well, another point I want to make is that if you look at the pilot assist system, so this is a kind of this automation system that they have.
Like a driver assistance system, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like Volvo's version of Tesla's autopilot. And, if they really care about safety, they put some more safeguards on this system. Like, for instance, if a driver falls asleep, it should stop the car. They're not doing that. So I think there's an opportunity there if they really want to make the car safer. Take a close look at that.
Well, it's an established system, so low-hanging fruit, so to speak.
What I think what they should really do here, though, I think this is heading in a really interesting direction, because you can look at geofencing a car for speed limits. 112, not many people in the U.S. are going to get up to that anyways. But think about like a city center where there are lots of pedestrians, and there's data out there that shows that if you're driving 23 miles an hour, 10% if you hit a risk of death if you hit a pedestrian, risk of death for the pedestrian. 42 miles an hour, that goes up to 50%. So think of all the times that you thought, oh, I'm a little late for a meeting, and you're kind of going through somewhere downtown, you're a little somewhere unfamiliar, driving a little fast. Now, if I were geofenced and I could only go, say, 25, or even just an alarm went off and could tell. That's where I think the future, and that's controversial because I realize you're taking away that freedom. But at the same time, I think it can be, especially with today's cars that isolate you so much from the road, that the sensation of speed just isn't there. And we've talked about that in some cars that are just, oh my God, I'm going 90 miles an hour, and I didn't even realize it.
No, I think
not in the city center, but you know.
No, but I think you're exactly right, because I don't think there's a big problem with a lot of Volvo drivers going 120.
Or a lot of any car
But there
drivers.
probably is a big problem with a lot of Volvo drivers in the city center going 50 into 25. So and they're not addressing that.
And I think also it's an interesting, getting away from this whole idea of top speed is what makes a car great. I mean, a drag racer has a really high top speed, and that doesn't make for a great car. And I think you can move towards, it's sort of a purpose-built thing. And you can move away from that, we had to limit it to 155 miles an hour for the Autobahn. And but you can get towards what makes a car good. It's its handling, it's the fact it can be light, it's engaging to drive, and that has nothing to do with top speeds as far as I'm concerned.
So you're saying basically people aren't buying Volvo SUVs because of the time around the Nürburgring?
That's not what makes people buy those cars.
We won't put that in our ratings.
I don't think so.
I'm sure there's a press release about it when the car was released about some kind of performance.
Of course. I mean, this is going to be controversial, but I think this is where this is headed, is that we're going to start to see some restrictions on what cars can do in certain places, and maybe automakers have to figure out how to market themselves away from numbers that don't matter to the average consumer.
Right.
And that's, we see Mazda doing that with that sort of fun to drive aspect, and we see automakers doing that with what it offers. So I don't know. I think it's a step in the right direction, but let us. I'm sure you'll tell us what you think out in the comments. So, to a car that did not advertise its top speed around the Nürburgring, there's we just finished testing a car, the Cadillac XT4. It's a premium luxury entry level. It's a lot of adjectives.
Yes.
Yeah.
It uses all the words. It's a so we call it an entry level luxury SUV. Some people may call it a subcompact luxury SUV. Basically, it competes with the Audi Q3, the BMW X1, the Lexus UX. All these very small models. And it was a great car. It's a great car to drive. They've updated the Cadillac user interface system, which is, the acronym was Q. It now has a knob. It has some hard buttons.
Nope.
I don't know.
The new Q is not.
People are still talking about the
Q
CTS as the Catera touring sedan. So there's all the acronyms.
Well, what happened to the Eldorado is what I'm. No.
So anyway, we'll table that. So it has a nice interior. It has a lot more hard buttons, so it's easier to get in and out of the infotainment system.
And this is a Cadillac that's really trying to get away from that prior image of Cadillac. This is meant for younger buyers.
It's a younger entry. Bring a buyer in. Cadillac. GM even says, it's going to bring in either an older buyer who's downsizing. It might bring someone into the brand. Again, it tested really well in our road tests, but we had to spend a ton of money to get any of the advanced driver assistance systems, the safety systems like forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking, and that Cadillac's reliability isn't great. Some of those things do hurt it, and it becomes an iffy value because of all the money you have to spend. It has a great entry-level price, but then you get all-wheel drive, and then you get the safety systems, and all of a sudden the price balloons up towards the $50,000 mark.
Now, the one thing that you can only get in this car, and I spent a little time with it, is I counted about 8 badges that let me know that it was a Cadillac from the driver's seat. But underneath, this car is not entirely. It's not entirely unique, right?
Well, the truth is that, the dirty little secret about this entire category is that these are basically inexpensive vehicles that kind of have a body on it that make it look like this luxury vehicle. So underneath most of these cars in this category is, they're front drive. They're basically small SUVs.
Ours is all-wheel drive, but it's based on a front drive.
Right, exactly. They're front drive based, which is different from
look, even the BMWs, which are all historically rear-wheel drive,
is a front drive base.
The BMW X1,
right, M2.
Right, into
like the Mini.
The X3, the X5, these are rear drive based. These are actually really nice driving vehicles. The X1, not so much. So what you've got is basically these small SUVs. And small SUVs you could buy all day for $25,000, $30,000. Even with lots of equipment, you're talking 32, 33. You got leather, you got all these features. What you don't have is the 12 badges that
Right.
says, look, I'm in a luxury car. But what you wind up doing is getting a much better value, and very often a car that actually drives better.
Sure.
Which is crazy.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before with the subcompact, just regular SUV, and it's kind of an annoying category because, you start optioning it up to be comfortable and quieter, because they are subcompact cars underneath, which are built to a low price. And you start approaching a compact SUV class, which is bigger, which has more features standard, which is probably quieter as well. In this category, we talked about, I think, the BMW X1 and X2, and I said, just buy a Mazda CX-5. You get a loaded Mazda CX-5.
It's bigger,
touring,
you can
limited,
fit
whatever.
stuff. You get the actual
Exactly.
benefits of an SUV, and it's not like these cars drive really small. It doesn't drive like it's not like you're scooting around the city in a smart car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a substantial automobile.
Sure.
See, I mean, again, you want to believe the marketing hype, and it's going to carve up the Nürburgring following that Volvo. Great. But if you're looking really for a value, that's where it is at. The Mazda, fine. You may not like Mazdas. You may be a little more geared towards a Honda CR-V. Again, loaded it up. Still comes in way underneath these
And those
other
interiors
vehicles.
now are quite nice.
they're
I got to
very nice
say,
vehicles.
the XT4 is I appreciated how it was designed, very minimalist, but it didn't give me $30,000 more enjoyment over some of the competition.
I mean, the truth is that, I mean, you look at it, and it's almost like this category was designed in this labs. Like, what do people want? They want SUVs, they want luxury, they want good price. You can't
It's
have all those
the
things.
Venn diagram of
you can
the
too.
marketing segments.
Right, exactly. You got to have two. You can't have all three.
Yeah. So I mean, it's bringing people in. It's a niche, and then we're going to see the coupe version. Like Mercedes does in BMW. You have the SUV, then you have the coupe version of the SUV, and
The XT3.5.
yep. And it's filling in these places, because someone else does it. It's a fine car to drive, but again, questionable value. We're going to have the full ratings online soon.
Up at CRO and consumerreports.org. So check that out when that's up soon. Excellent. So enough about that. On to your questions. And remember, if you want to get your question answered by this illustrious panel of experts, send it over to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Now, we don't have any video questions this week because you didn't send any in. So please make yourself a star. Send it to us, and we'll put you on there up next to us and make you look good. So the first question is from Byron. Byron from Baltimore asks, a friend of mine told me that whenever he drives a car, he lowers the steering wheel so that the center of the wheel is pointing at his chest, not his face. He claims if the airbag deploys, it will cause less harm to the driver if it hits you in the chest. Is there a consensus of opinion among safety experts regarding how best to position the steering wheel?
Well, first of all, I mean, the fact that he's concerned about where that steering wheel is, he's not wrong. It really does make a big difference of where that steering wheel is, but it's not about the tilt. I mean, the truth is when the airbag goes off, it's a pretty big bag. It's supposed to support your head. I mean, if it was actually small and down here and your head went flying, it doesn't necessarily make anything better.
It'd be like they video the guy on the cannonball.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
and you have to film it in slow motion.
Yes. And airbags don't go in slow motion like all the videos. They actually come up pretty hard. But what he should be concerned about is less so that tilt, but more so the distance. That is actually a really important thing. So a lot of cars have the telescopic steering wheel and of course where you sit. Now, if you ever see those, somebody who's driving the car like this, it's where like their elbows are on the steering wheel, like that.
It looks like they're hanging, one of those Garfields hanging off with the suction cups hanging off the wheel.
Nice. Yeah. Yes, and you see these people who are driving the car. That is actually quite dangerous because you're so close to that airbag when it goes off, it doesn't even have time to inflate. You're actually getting smacked with it pretty hard. What you want to do is actually, you don't want the steering wheel too far away from you. I mean, there's some people who are really scared. They're kind of
straight-armed, right?
Straight-armed there, and that gives you problems because you can't really steer the wheel that easily. What you almost want to do is you want to set up so the steering wheel's like put your arms out straight, rest your wrists on the top of the steering wheel, and that's going to give you a pretty good location of where the steering wheel is. You're going to have your arms a bit bent, but not too bent, and that's going to be a good location. That's important. So not so much the tilt, but put it in the right spot to make that airbag function the way it should.
And also, John, what you do when your hands are on the wheel, where your hands are, also make a difference. It's no longer 10 and 2, right?
Yeah, you get 10 and 2, 9 and 3 in that area. I think one of the things that Jake's talked about, and you see if driving on on our track or something like that, is that you don't cross your arms over.
And I was taught to do that in driver's ed, hand over hand turning. Yeah.
Well, if you could do a little more shuffle, you're not bringing your arm across the airbag. So especially
if it
because
goes
if you're
off,
turning, then you're going to be potentially coming into something oncoming, and you'll break your arm, the force of the bag.
So I hope that clears it up, and some important safety tips there. So our next question says, hey, Talking Cars, I'm looking for some advice about how to care for an older vehicle. My grandma is selling me her 2006 Honda CR-V EX. It has 130,000 miles, and it's been maintained regularly at the original dealership where she purchased it new. I'm currently in law school, so my funds are low, but I do want to take just as good care of the car as she did. The car spent its life in Staten Island, but will now be with me in Boston. I've never owned my own car before, so any advice will be greatly appreciated. Thanks, I love the show. That's a great question. That's a great question.
Scrape off the Islander stickers, the New York, and the Yankee stickers.
That's
Moving up there, that's important. That's important.
Yeah.
Safety advice.
I think it's great that she serviced it at the dealership always, because he can go and get the service records. If she didn't keep the paperwork, he can go and see what's been done and what hasn't been done, and assumingly everything in the manual.
And he knows how the car's been taken care of its entire life.
Yeah, maintenance manual is there, but he has all the details.
So first of all, I mean, this is the best way to get a used car. Where you know the history of the vehicle, you know what has gone through and whatnot. So that's great. But really, it's not rocket science. Every car has in the manual, they have what are the planned service suggestions for this car, what service you need to get done. Open up the book, look through it. You could, as John says, you could go and you could reference what's been done. If there's things that need to get done, just get it done. And very often, I mean, a car like this, I mean, it's going to be simple things. It's going to be stuff like, the engine air filter, the interior air filter. These things are going to need to be replaced. And here's the secret about that is they're easy. It's so easy to do some of these things. You don't have to bring it to a Honda dealer. You could bring it to any garage, and you could even do it yourself. You could actually buy a lot of the filters, a lot of these simple maintenance things for this car. This car, it's a pretty simple car when you come down to it, and you can replace these things yourself.
Like you said, a local mechanic could do oil changes. Top off.
Right.
Do antifreeze change or whatever. Top it off because he's never owned a car before. Maybe he's wants to take it
start in
slow.
the manual. Definitely start in the manual, and there'll be a section in the manual that explains about the regular things that you have to do with the car, and it's designed to kind of tell you. I think especially back in 2006, the user serviceable things yourself.
Well, one thing to think of also, he should negotiate hard.
With grandma. Now, I actually have some tips specifically because he mentioned he's bringing it from somewhere that's a little more suburban to Boston. And this is something I'm familiar with. So my girlfriend's in law school in Boston and has a car there, so she's in a similar situation. And the first thing you're going to know is that the car, it might look perfect right now. It's going to get dings. It's going to get dents. You're going to street park it. Someone's going to scrape it and not leave it a note. You're going to get curb rash. You're going to hit those wheels a little bit. So don't get too precious about a car you're bringing into the city. Also, you're going to have to find a place to put it. So street parking can get a little hairy sometimes. You have to make sure you're moving in the right time, and it's going to interfere with your life. So my advice might be, having a car can sometimes get really expensive and be a hassle in the city, especially when you're balancing that with your law school duties. So it may be worth it if you want to be able to go home for the weekends or do an occasional Costco run. Maybe keep the car at home for a semester and try like a Zipcar membership or something, because they're pretty much everywhere. They're on most college campuses, and that way you can you don't have one more thing to worry about.
So the car show guy says, don't get a car.
I know, it's terrible.
Or you could rent out your space.
Yeah, I actually have a space that I'm renting out. If you can make it to Medford, $100 a month, let me know. Just kidding.
But to your point, you may wind up not using this car a lot.
Yeah.
And that's honestly probably the worst thing you can do for this car. If this car sits a month, it's not going to be happy. So even if you find take it out once a week. Start it up.
If it's street parked,
it.
you can't plug it into like a battery tender or something. So you have to worry about if it sits for a month, it might need a jump start. So get that jump box or a membership or live near a garage, right? Yeah. Cool. So our next question says, "Hi, Talking Cars. Thanks for becoming my favorite podcast." I'm glad we could get there. I was opening my car door, and it occurred to me, why haven't door hinge designs ever changed? Ooh, I like this question already. There are many times where I find myself in a parking lot with very small spaces, and the detents to hold the door in a position don't really work, and I have to actively hold on to the door and squeeze out of the car. How come we haven't progressed to more than 2 detent positions on doors? Maybe even a ratcheting design where maybe every centimeter has a holding detent. That would be so useful.
I love
this.
the
I love this.
urgency that you read that question with.
Well, I'm sure that's sort of how the person who asked it, getting out of the car, squeezing out.
Their door is swinging just in a parking lot
parked
randomly.
next to a premium
It's
compact
probably.
SUV, and they don't want to ding the door on it.
So we get the chance to drive a lot of cars here, but it seems like most cars do have kind of the same idea when it comes to detents. So
What is a detent other than something I got in high school?
so the detention of the door. So right, it's like everyone knows this. Like you open up the door, right, and it kind of clicks one, and it clicks again, and then it goes all the way open. It kind of clicks there, so it stays in place. And the purpose of these are for, okay, so you're on a hill, right, and you open up the door. You don't want it swinging right into your leg. You want it to hold there. The problem is that there's only a few detents. You run into the exact same thing here. So it's kind of like, okay, this isn't enough to get me out. I go one more, and it slams into the car next to me. And fortunately, I mean, we get the chance to drive a lot of vehicles, and some very expensive vehicles here too. And some vehicles have progressed past this mechanical detent way of looking at things. So if you get into like some very high-end vehicles like Mercedes-Benz S-Class and whatnot, they've actually gone electronic detent. So there's this new paradigm where you open the door, you put it wherever you want, and then it just basically hits the brakes there.
Yeah.
So you can put it wherever you want. So you have like this micro-adjusting detent.
So I can
scenario.
guess why this isn't on more cars, though, right?
Expensive and probably breaks often. It's probably the two things. So it's a very simple solution that the cars have right now.
And I mean, there are some other solutions out there. We've seen other door designs.
Yeah, they've Tesla Model X,
And that
the
never
wings
breaks.
that don't.
Okay, that sometimes breaks a lot.
The Mr. Wings that need to learn to fly
It's
again.
been troublesome according to our reliability data from our auto survey. We experienced headaches with it. Interesting concept in the sense that it can open up in a tight area. It could open up where you have a lot of space. But like you said, expensive and prone to breakage.
And actually, minivans have a completely different scenario here, where you could open it and you have a big opening, and guess what? Those tend to break fairly often too.
And that's one of the reasons. So, I mean, of course, I have to bring it to weird cars that haven't been sold here, but the Toyota Porte and the Peugeot 1007 are cars that actually had sliding driver's doors.
They went above 900.
Yeah, they went really high.
Wow.
They both look kind of goofy if you look at them.
Shocked.
Yeah, when you open the door, you kind of slide it back.
I will say, like the question comes. I had a 1996 Audi A4, first new car I bought. I know someone will find it problematic, and it had really solid detents. And it had almost hooks, and it would go into the spot and it would really hold very well. And a lot of them you see now, it's almost like a hydraulic bar that goes in and out. And it's a cost-cutting measure as well.
Yeah, but actually, those solid detents that you talk about have a downside too, because when some of those German cars that have those really, really stiff detents, like my kids would be in the back and they can't even open the doors because it's so heavy. So I mean, this is a opportunity for burgeoning engineers to figure out a better way of doing it.
Accordion door.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
Lambo doors for everything.
Yes.
Polite
You can
engineers.
Lambo door the Civic. I'm sure you can Lambo door the CRV.
Yep, just go on eBay. It's totally
The scissor doors.
Don't
from
go
the-
on eBay. Don't
No,
do
don't
that
do
to your
that,
car.
don't do that.
Please don't do that to your car. All right, I think that's enough talk about door hinges for today. But if you enjoyed this conversation, I'm sure you probably enjoy all the Talking Cars. So send us another question. We love questions like this. We love all your questions. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. If you want to find out how to spell Hildy, check out our show notes. And thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk cars again soon.